My boss is arrogant and condescending. In his mind, no one dares to provoke him, especially someone like me who was fired on the first day, but as it turned out, he underestimated my courage and my means. Today was my first day at work. Apparently my boss Damien bumped into me, but he got so angry that he fired me because I called him blind. After Damien fired me, he walked into his private elevator, but he didn't expect me to follow him. Who do you think you are, sharing my private elevator? He asked incredulously. I smiled and walked up to him, wrapping my arms around his neck and quickly taking a photo of us. He looked at me, shocked by my boldness. Give me my job back, or everyone will see this. Your girlfriend might be interested too, I threatened. Damien tried to grab my phone, but I held on tight. Are you threatening me? He growled. I smiled even wider. You can call it a threat if you want. Damien lunged to snatch my phone, but to his surprise, I tucked it into the front of my blouse just as the elevator doors opened. Everyone in the elevator froze as they saw the boss trying to reach inside a woman's blouse. Damien cursed and quickly pulled his hand back. Just when he thought it was over, I started crying. How could you do this to me? I have an elderly, sick father. If I don't work here, how will I pay for his medical bills? Damien turned toward the voice. Mom, what are you doing here? Anita, his mother, walked over to where I was crying. As soon as she approached, I hugged her tightly. Please, don't let him treat me like this. I come from a poor family, and they rely on my income, but he fired me on my first day, I sobbed. Anita listened to my story, holding back tears. She turned to her son, who showed no remorse. How could you treat her like this, Damien? After everything she's been through, you bully her? Damien was shocked. Bully her? No, he was the one being bullied. Mom, you have no idea how shameless she is, he said, but Anita silenced him with a raised hand. I promise, dear, no one will be fired. I'll take care of this. I smiled, brushing my hair behind my ear, and stared at Damien's grim face. Anita took me to an office with a breathtaking view of the city through large floor-to-ceiling windows. Damien, since you need a secretary, let her be your secretary, Anita suggested. Damien glared at me, but I stood firm. No, Mom. She'd be better off as a cleaner than my secretary. Anita narrowed her eyes. She's your new secretary. It's settled. She stood up and smiled at me. From today, you'll work with him. If he makes things hard for you, you can call me. She handed me a business card, which I took eagerly. Thank you, ma'am. You've saved my life, I said with a bright smile. Anita blushed, waved goodbye, and quickly left the office. I waved at her until she disappeared, then looked at the card meaningfully. The next moment, Damien snatched it from my hand. Give it back. I tried to grab it, but he held it high above his head, out of my reach. You've signed your death notice. You got this job thanks to my mom, but how will you survive under me? I raised an eyebrow. Dear boss, you can't bully me. Damien's frown faded. After a moment, he realized he could keep me around. You know, I've been a bad boss. I was going to fire you, but now I'll keep you as my secretary. I was surprised by the sudden change. Hadn't he opposed me working here before? Really? I asked, my eyes sparkling with joy. Before I could leave the office, he added, you'll regret working with me. Bella then threw a pile of documents on my desk. The boss says you need to finish these by the end of the day, or you'll have to stay overtime. Fuming, I snapped at Bella. Did you mess this up? Why don't you leave? The other employees gasped. Bella was known as the second boss when Damien wasn't around. Bella stared at me, wide-eyed. Are you deaf or something? I raised an eyebrow again. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? Please don't yell. I have a lot to do. If you don't mind, please leave now, I retorted. Bella stormed off. A few minutes later, the phone on my desk rang. Come to my office now. I knew Damien wasn't happy by the tone in his voice. Damien leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple, while Bella stood beside him, smiling. I avoided his questioning gaze. He began. Before you blame me, I didn't do anything wrong. She started it, but if you want to punish me for a mistake I didn't make, go ahead. I just have to call the number on the black card. Are you threatening me? Damien's tone was low and menacing. Bella, he called, and she smiled slightly. Yes, boss? Get out, he ordered. Bella's smile froze, but she quickly recovered and left, leaving Damien and me alone. Damien walked toward me slowly, his steps threatening. I didn't flinch, surprising him. What do you think you're doing? He grabbed my arm, pushed me gently against the wall, and looked down at me. You've only been here 6 hours, and you've already broken 15 rules. I laughed softly, my hand gripping his tie. I'm pretty impressive, didn't you know? I'm not the obedient type, you can ask around. Damien pulled his tie from my grip and stepped back, but I moved closer to him. The tension continued until Damien realized he was backed up against the desk. Boss, are you suddenly scared of me? Weren't you trying to show off earlier?